All right, here we are. It is commonsenseohioshow.com or just Common Sense Ohio if you just want to listen to the show. But if you want to listen to the show and check out the website and check out all the backlog, you go to commonsenseohioshow.com where you have all the buttons necessary to like, subscribe, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, wherever else we are. I don't even know. It's so many places. So ubiquitous that it is everywhere. And one of the reasons anyway, we are so ubiquitous is because we are sponsored by Harper Plus Accounting. And right now, anybody who's running a small business either is thinking, darn it, I had to extend my corporate. Now I got to extend my personal because I had to extend my corporate. And if you don't know what a K1 is, don't worry about it. It's not skis. I think those are K2s.
No, I have no clue.
There's a brand of skis called K2s.
Good for you.
Norm knew it. But if you didn't get your K1s from March 15, then you can't do your personal returns for April 15, and now you're looking at October. Not with Harper Plus because my stuff was done and it was tight and it was solid, and we're already planning for next year. My accountant could be yours. Now they have a whole separate. So, there's this thing in accounting worlds where, do you need a tax return done? You bring the paperwork, it gets done quickly. And do you trust H&R Block? I don't. Do you trust yourself with TurboTax? I don't.
There goes that sponsorship.
Yeah, right. unless they want to sponsor us. Right. Then they're the greatest.
Yeah.
No, so they've got Harper Plus has a whole new wing just for that. They'll get your quick little easy tax return, and nothing's quick and easy, but you get what I'm saying. They'll do the transactional stuff too. So Harper Plus Accounting. What else do we got going on? A quote of the day, which is going to lead into the World War II fact of the day, and you're going to wonder what the hell Dante has to do with World War II. But as Dante said, a mind sequestered in its own delusions is to reason invincible. Interesting. And what was he talking about? Neville Chamberlain, who on this day in 1930 or 1940 maybe proclaimed Hitler has missed his bus.
Peace in our time.
Hitler has missed the bus on the invasion. So by then, Hitler had already taken Poland, and I think Chamberlain was talking. I think he said it several times. And the internet, my sources give me sometimes the same fact in different days. So forgive me if I get it wrong. But anyway, he was talking to some people up in Norway and said, don't worry, Hitler has missed the bus. We're all good. We've now had time to ramp up our military, and we're going to be just fine. And then I think within a month, Hitler invaded. So it was an interesting sort of segue, I think, into what's going on today. It's like this. There was this criticism, and the person who used Dante to describe Chamberlain was a gal named Susan Peterson in The Guardian. Describes him as a shy, prickly, arrogant, narrow-minded, and above all vain. Once he made up his mind, he thought criticism was disloyal and personally hostile. As Dante said, a mind sequestered in its own delusions is to reason invincible. And isn't that similar to what we got cooking in our leaders today? They don't want to hear it. If you criticize them, and look, this may be true on both sides of the political aisle right now. Try to criticize anybody who's in charge right now and see the reaction you get. It is not a common sense approach to the world, and I think this is an interesting. I don't know. History repeats itself, I suppose, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, right? I like to be able to take apart facts and circumstances and tidbits and just, chop it up here at the table a little bit.
I mean, what you say and that author says about Chamberlain is absolutely true, but it's 10 times more true about Hitler, who was completely delusional, and his generals in Dante's, to use his metaphor, his circle of generals around him almost never told him that this was the path to the end of Germany, that he was destroying their country with taking on all of these wars, invading all these countries, a two-front war with the West and with Russia. And every time, finally a few of them tried to blow him up, in an assassination attempt, but it was way too frickin' late.
Well, and then there was this, in the same article, the same history that I was studying this morning, is the Oster plot. And apparently there was this sort of rumor going around that if Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia, that his own generals would they would step in and sort of take him down. And Chamberlain sort of bought into that nonsense.
Yeah.
Churchill did not, as it were.
Yeah.
But there's some really fascinating history going back and forth with how Churchill takes power. after the war had already started, sort of as it starts. Chamberlain sort of is shamed off. And then, but ironically, after the war, it was sort of the reverse. Churchill's gone, the socialists sort of move in, and there we go.
Yeah, the old Prussian.
Maybe that's a strong word, socialist, but the Labor Party.
Yeah, no, that there were any number of plots or theories, before Hitler really ramped up and invaded Poland, that these various Anschlusses, like into Czechoslovakia, for example, that and Austria, and he did several of these, Alsace-Lorraine. He went into a lot of these areas, and the old Prussian generals were always thinking, "Oh God, no way is France and England going to put up with this shit."
And they did.
And they did.
Right.
And so
no way the United States would put up with attacks on our merchant ships.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
No way we would put up with that.
You'd think we wouldn't, would you?
No way we would put up with China taking Taiwan.
Right.
Yeah.
Or building islands out in the Pacific that are aircraft carriers.
We wouldn't put up with that.
No.
We wouldn't put up with that.
No.
Or like terrorists coming across the border unchecked.
Oh, actually, let's just fly them in.
It is
We'll pay to bring them in, right?
It is an invasion, like assisted by the federal government itself.
Right. It's
like
insane.
You can understand the states rebelling and going to the Supreme Court and saying, we want SB 4 in Texas to be upheld because nobody's stopping these people.
Yeah, we would never put up with that.
No, we would never put up with it.
No, right. That couldn't happen.
Look who I found.
We've got a guest.
all you see is a tail wagging around.
Mrs. Dexter.
I love it. Hey,
I love your dog,
puppy.
Steve.
All right. So without further ado, I suppose we should jump right in.
Amazing.
Lots of stuff going on in the world.
Oh, my God. It's unbelievable. Speaking of warfare, just brief. So the Israeli bombing this past week of an embassy, I can't get over that they bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria. They in order to kill a particular general who was doing all of this terrorism, like Trump bombed, the Iranian general at an airport, but the Israelis bombed an embassy, and then a couple days later, they mistakenly, I suppose, they say they made a mistake. They killed 6 or 7 food aid workers in Gaza, blew them up. And I think it reflects not only the fog of war, like the United States has done stuff like this too.
Well, like in recent times. Afghanistan, Biden did the same damn thing.
Killed 10 people, some guy coming back with his kids.
And got skewered for it.
Yeah. So and Biden never really said he was sorry or anything. He just kind of just moseyed on.
I'm not sure he even knew it happened.
No. So I want to support Israel, and I've been on the program saying that. I thought Israel, I should have known better because Netanyahu is kind of out there. He has a history of being out there. The real Netanyahu hero was his brother who was killed rescuing those people who were hijacked and held in Entebbe. And he was a special forces Israeli soldier on that mission and in charge of it, and he got killed. But Benjamin, his brother, the younger brother, he has a record of attacking refugee camps, attacking settlements. This guy's a little out there, and I was hoping Israel would be surgical in their methods. Instead they're carpet bombing Gaza.
I wouldn't say they're carpet bombing.
Well, the whole cities are gone.
On the other hand,
craters of the moon.
Let's pick it apart because I have to decide where I fall on this one. As far as the friendly fire incident, I think in almost any conflict, any war in history that has happened.
But when you bomb an embassy, you basically
the embassy's a different. Well, those two are different things.
Well,
so we need to take them differently.
Embassies are where you do diplomacy.
Correct.
And even if an embassy harbors a crook or an evil person, I don't get bombing the embassy.
See,
right?
this is where it gets really blurry, because Hamas has hidden its people in hospitals, under hospitals. They're
In
basically
mosques.
they're creating innocent human shields,
For sure.
and then saying na,
Sure.
you can't get us.
Just like North Vietnam did during the
That's right. So
Vietnam War.
it puts the attackers in a really precarious position.
Absolutely.
So look, I get you. I don't presume to know enough military strategy about what was going on there as to whether that was necessary and certainly not, or proper, or whatever the words would be.
So if Netanyahu ran the Vietnam War, he would have carpet bombed Hanoi,
Presumably.
and we did not do that.
We didn't, and we lost.
Well, we didn't lose.
Well,
we left.
We left. But we left because of this, really, in a lot of ways, because of the political backlash of this kind of stuff.
Well, it was a half-assed war. McNamara
from
said
the beginning.
This we'll meet this force with an equal amount of force, but not enough to win.
Not enough to win, right? So, I mean, and maybe you look at Israel and they're saying we're not going to do that.
Well, I don't blame Israel, the country. It's the leadership. This guy is he's hell-bent on retribution, and I get that, but he's operating from an emotional basis. And and what they did to the 1,200, and there's still like 125 people being held prisoner, and they're raping them, they're torturing them, they're killing them.
So
I get all that.
There's evil on both sides going on. Then I think is what you're saying. Now blowing up an embassy.
Yeah.
Look, even if they felt it necessary, it's not a great look.
No, and I dare say, okay, maybe we kind of go back to the Dante quote that, okay, we both know, all of us know that, Israel comes from the standpoint that they want anybody in Palestine, everyone dead. They don't want them alive. And the Palestinians the same way. They treat each other like shit.
The radicals on both sides feel that way.
I mean, it's a cultural thing.
I mean, there are peaceful people within both.
Yes, yeah, but for as a whole,
well, this war is defined this way, the way you're talking about it, right?
Yeah,
so
they don't recognize each other.
That's true.
Bottom line. So it doesn't. So they're trying to. I'm not trying to justify the means, but it kind of is it going that direction? It's like we don't care. Bomb the whole thing.
Well, and they're sort of looking at like if we don't do this, they're going to do it to us. So this is what happens when you fight a war like this that doesn't presume to have really any rules, or if you have one side playing by the rules but the other not, then it gets politically difficult. Yeah. And look, I would say we'll flip it around here for a second. There's all these ceasefire calls and stop, quit killing innocent civilians, do whatever, and all you have to do is say Hamas, release your hostages, and we'll cease fire, and they won't do it.
Right. They
won't do it. They won't strike down any more than Israel.
Right.
So you can't blame one and not the other.
Right.
So Biden. Right. So see, Netanyahu had to know this. He's a shit tactician. If he didn't understand with a weak U.S. president that the moment yesterday in the phone call between Biden and Netanyahu, he had to know that was coming because Biden doesn't have any stomach for any of this, right?
No, Biden, it's not that he doesn't have any stomach.
He's folding up because of the election coming, and he needs Detroit, and he needs Minnesota.
He's always been a flipper, guided by whatever political current he thinks is going to get him.
Right.
Remember him being tough on crime, and remember him saying no, the Hatch Act, like all this crap.
That's right.
And all
he
of a sudden,
folds up like a house of cards.
Changes wins with whoever. And he's meeting with Bernie Sanders about health care all of a sudden when he was supposed to be a moderate. I mean, look, this is.
Well, but Netanyahu, by being so extreme, he has triggered Biden and Tony Blinken yesterday saying that if they don't declare a ceasefire quite soon, that America is going to pull their support from Israel in some way, right?
Right.
And that's a disaster for the people of Israel. I want Israel to prevail here.
This is a disaster for everybody.
For everybody, but it's just.
What is Putin thinking?
Jesus. So when we
What's
went
China
into
thinking?
When our Marines,
what's Iran thinking?
When our Marines went into when we went into Fallujah, right? We didn't carpet bomb Fallujah. We went house to house. It was very painful and costly. A lot of American lives, a lot of boys, missing limbs now, right? Going house to house, building to building, extracting ISIS, extracting the terrorists, extracting, the what did they call them, the swords of revenge or whatever the acronym was. But they're not doing that in Gaza. They are the tactic is we're not going to risk our people. We're just going to blow buildings up
because they have a very little respect for anybody that's in the Gaza Strip.
And there's children. There's freaking children.
I know.
Look,
I know.
Dude, and at the same time, you have Hamas hijacking aid convoys.
I get that.
Yeah.
And so it's like...
So kill Hamas. That's my point.
I'm with you. But
get your intelligence together
if
and
Hamas
kill
is
the
hiding
terrorists.
behind the innocent people,
I get that.
What do you do?
Okay. Well, in those situations, I think you do what you have to do. Like you go in to the hospital, you go onto the airplane, like they did in Entebbe.
So you wonder. I agree.
And some of the hostages get killed.
You wonder if we had
but you don't carpet bomb.
If we had a more sophisticated is not the right word, but maybe if we had a less spineless approach to this, and the U.S. were actually getting involved and saying, "All right, Israel, we're going to back you, but you're going to do it this way."
Yeah,
you're going to go in surgically, like you're talking about.
Yeah, pinpoint.
We'll give you some leadership. We'll give you some military assistance. We'll help you with the tactics. You're going to pinpoint this. You're going to do it. But our country won't do that. The Western world won't do that.
Right.
And so Israel's like, yeah, we're going to do it our way then. We're going to do it. And so
this guy's a hothead.
You always wonder what fills a vacuum when it exists.
Yeah.
Because it never just exists forever. A vacuum fills with something.
Yeah.
And we're not filling it.
Right.
We're playing both sides. So our country right now is playing. Actually, we're giving money to both sides. It's almost insane.
It's insane. Almost insane.
It is.
It is. We're
insane.
taking no position except whatever Biden thinks is politically prudent to get Michigan. Right.
Right.
So I mean,
at least that's how it's being portrayed.
That's how it's being portrayed. Or it certainly looks that way.
It looks that way. Correct.
The dots are certainly lining up in that direction.
Yeah.
So,
I'm afraid. So.
You wonder. So now, if we weren't taking that position, if we actually it's almost always better to be. To take a position, act on it, move forward with a plan.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? When you're wrong, at least you know what doesn't work and you can back up and go a different direction.
Right.
So I do this when I hunt all the time. I go hunt new land. People are like, what are we going to do? I don't know. Let's figure this out and make a plan. And then they say, well, how do you know that's going to work? Well, I don't know it's going to work, but I'll try and then I know what won't work.
So hunting is a great metaphor. Okay. There's assholes that go out there and throw a grenade in a lake, right? And then the fish, float up to the surface and they go get 200 fish. And then there's other guys that are real sportsmen, right? That put a hook in the water and they do it the right way.
Well, it depends on if you need 200 fish or not.
True. Yeah.
Look, there's people that net
fish. Well, I'm talking
and,
about sportsmen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, it's no fun to do it that way. So
yeah, right.
It's also not right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ethical.
It hunting. It depends on if you're netting fish or casting and catching.
Well, but as you know, come on, Steve. As you know, there's ethical ways to hunt deer, and there's unethical ways, and you know all about that. You're a hunter.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so, if you're hunting terrorists, there's an ethical way to do it and an unethical way, and I don't even think.
But even in the most ethical of scenarios,
they're not even trying.
The lines get blurred. All right.
For sure.
Yes.
Mistakes get made. I understand.
That's why I draw two different. I think they're two different stories.
Right, but they happen the same
accidental. Right. So you can't conclude from a friendly fire incident that the attacking force is evil.
No, of course not.
And you can't say it's directly related to the embassy because the embassy clearly was intentional.
Certainly looks like it.
And I just don't think that the friendly fire was.
Well, it wasn't friendly fire, but I know what you mean.
Know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You're hitting the aid trucks.
Yeah, hitting the aid people.
Yeah. All right.
Complete change of topic. Can we talk a little bit about this prop betting? So I have to say, I'm confused. The NCAA is saying in sports gambling, so like $3 billion are being wagered during March Madness right now. And there's all these ads. Okay, Pete Rose is still banned from the Hall of Fame for allegedly betting. But now the NBA, like Major League Baseball, everybody is betting. And the NCAA is saying, like the college athletes. So from what I understand, prop betting means proposition betting. And it's betting not on the spread or who's winning the game, but on little things like, how much time will it take from the opening buzzer for Caitlin, whatever her name is, to sink her first basket? Is it going to be 15 seconds?
Okay, all right.
Right. So then NCAA.
It's like drinking game betting.
Yeah. So NCAA says these bets are causing pressure on these amateur athletes who are just college kids, right? And man, some of them are going to take a dive. Some of them are going to get threatened.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, that's always been the problem with gambling.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean,
So how is this being prevented? The NCAA says you're not allowed to do that anymore. Well, really? They think the state of, Nevada is going to respect what the NCAA says?
Well, not since the online betting just cranked up this past a year and a half ago. Right. That what state doesn't have it?
How can they put the genie back in a bottle?
Well, you've got look the things that are happening in college athletics, the gambling, and then the name, likeness, and image, or name, image, likeness,
NAL. Yeah,
it's like it's changing college sports forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it or not.
Yeah.
Some people are all in favor of it. I happen not to be. I also recognize it as like, all right, well, here we are.
Yeah.
It's a different game. So we're recruiting players. Like one team, college teams are now recruiting players and offering money.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
And
it's not, we're not paying you to attend Arizona State University. We're paying you to advertise for this car deal.
Right. It's money. So look, you could say it's a recognition of what was already happening, and maybe it is, but it's money, and it's changing the face of it. So gambling is such an interesting phenomenon to me. So everybody has been watching I know it's not just the Ohio lottery, but the Powerball or whatever these lotteries are, up to billions.
A billion.
Over $1 billion, 1 point something billion. And, you win that, you cash out at $500 million, you pay taxes, you're walking away with $300 million. I think you could live on that. But what's funny is that's a numbers racket.
Yeah.
That's all it is a numbers racket.
Yeah.
It's what the mobsters used to run. So it's a numbers game. And that's all the lottery is. They have machines in every FOE or private club or whatever for lottery. I've represented folks who are accused of misconduct with relation to those machines. They get addicted on gambling. I've clients who have spent literally $100,000 on gaming, and the state's running it.
The state
is running it.
All specifically Ohio, all in the voice of it's going to go to the schools.
Oh,
it's going to go to the schools.
It's all nonsense.
You've got to be kidding me.
Right. Exactly. Yet we still have a school funding problem, and we've had the lottery, right? So
right.
So
it's just too big of a machine for anybody to really point fingers at it and shut it down.
I happen to be talking in the last several months with Ohio lottery agents.
Oh.
They have their own little brown shirt force.
Jeez.
And, they're talking about what happened, and my client did this or that and the other, and now my client stole this, and they kept saying my client stole from them.
Wow.
And I sat across the table just like we are now, and I said, "You mean me?"
Yeah, right.
Us? And they looked at me sort of funny. I was like,
"How is it
Isn't this a taxpayer problem?"
Yeah.
Like you didn't lose any money. Well, we represent the lottery committee. I said, yeah, and that's us, right?
Are they the same agency as the liquor control agents? Or
I think it's under the same hat, but it's a different agency.
Wow.
I mean, imagine a world somebody it gets enough momentum that the state of Ohio actually considers getting rid of the lottery. How much effort would that take?
It would be.
And the morality behind it, thinking about all the addiction that is a problem with that.
I think impossible.
I have purchased less than 20 lottery tickets my entire life. Yeah. Not counting scratch offs. I'll buy them for gifts at Christmas and stockings at times.
Right.
But like actual lottery tickets to win $1 billion, and I've been purchasing them lately because it's $1 billion. Somebody's going to win. I'll spend $3, and it adds up.
Right.
And if you do that every day, and I know people who have played the pick 3 and pick 5 and pick whatever.
Yeah.
And if you play those every single day, you're spending a couple $100 a month on lottery tickets.
So have you heard to support your point? Have you heard about this guy out in Vegas who has won? The one-armed bandit. What do you call it? The
slot machine.
Slot machine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
He's won it 4 times now for multiple hundreds of thousands. So the same guy, and it's $2,500. What he's doing, he's spending $2,500 per pool, and he has now won $1.3 million. He's hit the jackpot 4 times in the last 4 weeks.
Wow,
it's incredible. But I mean, Have you ever? I never even knew you could spend $2,500.
I'm sure you go
on
to the
a
high
one-armed
roller room
bandit.
and you can, the high roller room. I'm sure you can.
Good
I mean, look,
grief.
I have gambled. I played blackjack. I played craps. I pulled the slot machines a few times. I recognize how addicting it really is.
Yeah,
it is
the endorphin.
It's like,
right?
And I get addicted to a lot of stuff, and I know what that is.
Yeah.
So I have to treat that like a really hot fire.
Yeah.
And I can't be the only one.
No,
Right?
sure. No.
Yeah, and I know it's almost like an oversimple, but look at it.
Yeah.
And the lottery is no different. And these gamings the gambling that we're talking about in March Madness is no different. And you could say that the NCAA now is like, well, wait a minute, we don't want this anymore. At the same time, they're making tons of money from it. Like, who's watching March Madness except for that?
Yeah.
And it's like the tournament. Nobody is like, I watch that tournament or pay attention to that tournament.
There you go.
There you go.
Go to the tournament. Yeah.
And I don't care.
Right.
But I've got a $10 office pool, so I'm like, I'll check the scores and see what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, if I had bets on who's going to make the first basket, I'd be watching it. It'd be a lot more fun.
So do you remember back when like DraftKings and the other platforms were just coming on, like you would hear radio spots and stuff? You couldn't really bet in the U.S. with those guys. It wasn't like Virgin Islands.
You're going back like a decade
Correct.
or so.
They were based somewhere else for it to.
But they were laying the groundwork.
Well, people were playing poker online, blackjack on. I was getting calls all the time about it. Is it illegal in Ohio if I'm betting on playing on this system over there? And, it's like all sorts of stuff.
It's in Barbados or something, but you're online with them.
Yeah. So and now it's just the state just said, look, we can't beat it, so let's join them. We're gonna have our own gambling regime. The state has its own casinos.
Yeah.
Correct.
End of story.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the state of Ohio wasting money, because like you said, gambling has not paid for the schools. Our secretary of our Ohio auditor, Keith Faber, disclosed this past week that Ohio Medicaid overpaid $1 billion last year in illegal double dip fraud. And what this is, it involves 124,000 people in Ohio that are dual enrolled in other states as well as Ohio. And they're not even necessarily getting the money, but the operating companies in the healthcare system like CareSource, like they get paid by the state of Florida, right? Mm-hmm. So a snowbird Ohioan, like who's on Medicaid, and by the way, 1/3 of Ohioans are on Medicaid, which blows me away. So 3.6 million Ohioans are on Medicaid because Kasich and Obama opened it up. They liberalized the eligibility standards. Right. So $1 billion is going, like CareSource is getting paid for the same operation or drug or whatever it is for this little old lady, fictitious little old lady who's in Florida, but also in Ohio, and she's registered with both states.
All right, so
she's figured out the legal resident status in both states.
It's not her.
It's CareSource.
It's CareSource.
CareSource.
So what's happening is
we're being defrauded.
If I am, say I'm CareSource, and you come to me and you've got Medicaid, you're not paying. Medicaid's paying.
That's right.
Right.
But on my side, and there's a whole industry behind this on medical billing, it is as complicated as it gets. I mean, there are codes for everything. The Medicaid will slash you here, but let you pay more here. So it's gotten down to the science where if we call it this, we get paid more, and it's sort of the same thing. We'll just do it over here.
Right.
Whatever. It's become this sort of complicated science on how to get paid. And I think what you're saying is CareSource is collecting payment not only from Ohio, but also from Florida.
And maybe a third state. God knows.
And maybe a third state. So what I need to know is, are they doing it on purpose? And you could say it's always on purpose if they're collecting twice, but they may not even know they're doing it because a lot of this stuff is just sort of automated and whatever. They could just be sending bills, or it could just be, this is the classic in the checkout line at the grocery store. Well, they didn't charge me for it, so I guess I'll just take it. But guess what? It's still theft.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If somebody double pays you and you know it and you accept it twice, it's theft.
But like Faber says, can you imagine what Ohio, like if we didn't have to spend that $1 billion in fraud, it could be used in other,
Sure. Of course,
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And it's only $1 billion, yet it's $1 billion. What
and
I'm
we're
saying
one of 50
if you
states.
really looked into this, in every department, this is what's so asinine.
And in every state.
I represented somebody who works for, the person was an attorney working for public safety or something here in Ohio, and I learned how many attorneys, I can't remember the number, but how many attorneys worked for the Department of Public Safety, what they made, and then what they did all day long. And it is asinine. It's asinine.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I can't even begin to vent about this because it's so upsetting to me.
Right.
And
there was a stat yesterday that came out that said people who have home offices, like people during COVID that were allowed to work from their homes, are twice as likely to take a nap on the job as people who are
I'm not going to use any names, but this was a government attorney. And the government attorney was talking to me one time about something or other. And he mentioned some device. I said, I don't know what that is. He goes, well, you know, it's this thing. It's like you put your mouse on it and it moves your mouse every so often so your screen doesn't go off.
Wow.
And I was like, well, why do you care?
Imitating activity.
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason they care about, I was like, it took me a second to sort of put two and two together, and I realized, oh, you're watching Netflix and you want to make them think you're working. That's theft.
Or take a nap.
Or take a nap.
Yeah.
Right. You're mowing the grass and they think you're working because your mouse is moving.
Wow.
It is.
How crooked is it?
Because I know they've got
this is theft.
Hayden has talked about this, taking online tests at UC, or it was during the summer when he was doing it all, 100% online, a course he was taking, and something to do with the camera catching eyes, where his eyes would be. So if his eyes go down to look for answers rather than taking the test, it would know. Whoa. So he really had to be focused on the screen taking the test. So they have that technology there.
Like
to
the
reverse
of
what you're saying.
Like facial recognition.
Pretty much a facial recognition. Yeah. So it moves the mouse. So it looks like
moves the mouse.
Unbelievable.
And look, I have gotten this habit every afternoon. I go home, somewhere mid-afternoon. I just get a change of scenery, and I just return emails and phone calls or whatever. Yeah. And I sit on my couch and just sort of do it. And I got my dog there, and maybe I'll start dinner because it takes, whatever it would be.
But you work for yourself.
I work for myself. Right. But there are times. Look, what I'm saying is, I am certainly not more efficient at home.
No, God, no.
And far from it. I mean, sometimes I'll doze off for about 20 minutes. Sometimes I'll watch I'll listen to a podcast while I'm doing something else. But I'm not ripping anybody off.
No,
I'm working for myself.
Well, you're ripping yourself off.
Ripping myself
off.
If
you don't. Right. No, yeah, exactly. Right. If you look back on the day going, okay.
Could I have been more productive?
But then you're also working till 3 a.m. sometimes.
So I choose to do it at different times. Right. So my job's a little bit sporadic. But if I'm paying a government attorney to be there for 8 hours and do 8 hours worth of work, they're not doing that. They're not even getting close to doing that.
No, they're not.
And no, they're not. And what they're making, we're talking like mid six figures or 125, 150,000.
Right.
Plus benefits.
And
plus forgiving student loans.
So guys,
this is a racket.
What could be more basic, right, than states getting together and running a Social Security number to see if they're doubly or triply paying for the same claim? This doesn't even seem to be hard.
This is what I say all the time. It's always easy to spend somebody else's money, and the corollary, or maybe an offshoot of that, is you don't give a crap when it's not very
That's right.
Like there's no incentive for them to care because they just got so much money. And how many times have you talked to a government entity that says, "Oh, it's the end of the year, we got to get our budget in, or we got to spend it."
Right.
Oh, and if we don't spend it, we lose it.
We lose it, or you could give it back.
Yeah. And maybe we'll give you a bonus at the end of the year for saving some money.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Right. You could give it back. Why are we incentivizing blowing through it all?
Right.
Yeah, you'd think there'd be some measures to double check that scenario, but
if you were running a private business, you wouldn't tolerate it.
No way.
You would not tolerate it. None of this stuff would you tolerate.
And it's so Captain Obvious.
These mothers would be prosecuted. It would be like, it would be, you wouldn't tolerate any of it. Yet somehow with taxpayer dollars, like, oh, it's just sort of funny. We spent $5,000 for a hammer.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of being prosecuted, so are we going after the companies or the individuals?
Well, I think that has yet to be determined. But
I've represented one, both, and whatever. So like they'll take down a lot of these. You know what they do? Here's what's frustrating. I'll say a home health aide, and I've got several of these right now. And the home health aide, like day in and day out, maybe it's a woman in a small town in Ohio, and her job is to go take care of people at home. And then what happens is they become sort of friendly with the people. They become like a separate.
Yeah, they're almost a family member.
Yeah, family member.
Sure do.
And maybe the family, and so they go that day, and the family says, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it today. And, you can just go home and don't worry. You bill it anyway. Just don't worry about it. So they do. And, maybe they stack up a couple of thousand in billing like that. Then they get indicted. But this stuff is going on. And, and it's, I'm not saying they shouldn't get indicted.
Right.
But a lot of times they'll have sort of the logic that you just gave me, Norm, where they're going to, the home health aide to say, well, look, I worked, I always stay 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
And I never bill for that. So I'll just do this.
Yeah.
This is what happens with government programs.
Right.
It is what happens with government programs. It's almost impossible to do it perfectly. It cannot, anybody's ever filled out a form for something and that the information you have doesn't fit on the form and you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no skin in the game. These people don't have a personal stake in their department's budget or what they're spending. So there's no incentive for anybody to double check or audit or be suspicious or any of that.
And you could say this is where the politicians, particularly the leftists, always operate in this realm. Well, people should. People should.
Right.
And what you said, Norm, is you used a word in there, incentive, which is really a corollary to human nature.
Yeah.
Human nature is going to do what we're incentivized to do. If it's my money.
Right.
I am not going to tolerate this.
Adam Smith. I mean, it's basic,
Right. Adam Smith. You're exactly right.
Basic economics. If you have skin in the game, you will care then.
You will care.
About the costs and the benefits and where the money's going. And you'll be because it's coming out of your pocket.
My son is saving for something right now, and it's joyous to watch his bank account grow.
That's awesome.
Right? Where if he wasn't, or if I were just going to buy it for him, he would go blow it at McDonald's every day after work.
Right.
And it's like,
right.
There's a skin, like you said, skin in the game. It's a great way to put it.
And the more and more you think about this, okay, $1 billion over a year's time, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Checks and balances quarterly. If you think, if you look at it over the first quarter, and you're going, it's $300 million higher than a year over year. Look.
Well, they don't even know because it's probably happened so many years ago. It looks just like the last year.
Maybe.
So
Brett, this feeds into every program you can think of.
Yeah.
It feeds into voting fraud.
Sure.
When there's no cross-checking between the states.
Right. Sure. Exactly.
People this is the oldest scam. People on welfare in two different states. My office is down on the south side. And I got to know a lot of Appalachian folks. There's the Appalachian Settlement House that's a block from my office, right? The Southside Settlement House. And it was for Appalachians coming into Ohio to assist them with, hey, you're in a new state. You're not in West Virginia anymore, right? Or Kentucky. Mm-hmm. You're in Ohio. This is how things work. Mm-hmm. We're going to help you find an apartment. We're going to, et cetera, find a job, blah, blah, blah. Well, these folks were telling me, and they're just good old boys. And I said one time, hey, are you going to be around? I don't know what it was, 4th of July or something, early in the month. and I'll use the guy's name. He's not in Ohio anymore, but the guy's name happened to be Steve. And Steve said, "No, Norm, we have to go back to West Virginia because my check's coming." And I said, "What do you mean check?" And he says, "Well, I get a welfare check in Ohio. And I get one in West Virginia."
And they don't think anything of it.
And he didn't perceive that there was any problem with that. Mm-mm. It was just him being clever and working the system.
Right. This is like the person at the checkout line says, "Oh, that's good for me."
Yeah. And I'm like, "Wow, Steve, I hope you don't get busted." I'm not going to bust you. But dude,
it's crime.
Your ass is hanging out
and
here.
You're stealing from me here in the state of Ohio.
And the people in West Virginia.
Yeah.
You're
nothing else you take it personal because you're stealing from me.
Push that out, extrapolate it out. So, these people are not only disincentivized from working, it's like they're double disincentivized. Now it's like, this is great. So and we have now, and all you have to do is look at post-COVID what we've done.
Right.
Like we have just disincentivized so many people from going back to work. We've ruined businesses. And then we're adding sort of off the books labor by the millions. Through the southern border.
Yeah.
It just is. Yeah.
Well, it's like doctors. Doctors that lose their license in one state and they go shopping for another state and they pop up in California and they're disbarred, so to speak, from another state. It's like these states don't cross-check with each other. It's unbelievable.
Let's unpack that a little bit, though, because when we founded the country, each individual state was sort of like its own country. There was a time when if you went to Indiana, it meant something.
That's right.
Or if you went to Kentucky, I'm down. You had different laws. You had different things. There wasn't interstates. It was a whole different world.
Right.
It was a different realm, and now it's become homogenized with a bigger federal governmental presence than I think our founders ever intended.
Yeah.
And so now we've got this weird mix of both, which I think is what the problem is. So I don't have any problem if a doctor is disbarred or say a lawyer is disbarred in Ohio and then goes in California and gets a license to practice. Look, if you're going to have it that way, well, then have it that way. California's got every right to license a lawyer out there.
Right.
Just because Ohio didn't doesn't mean they can't.
Right.
But when you have this sort of like pseudo involvement of the federal government, it's sort of like what's everything wrong with healthcare.
Right.
Like we want it to be private, yet we want the government to pay for it.
Right.
And it's the worst of both worlds.
Right.
So what we're talking about here is just that. If Ohio had a Medicare benefit and it was all just done within the state, so be it. Then we wouldn't give a crap what some other state is doing.
That's right.
And the other state probably wouldn't care because it's their money. They wouldn't let it happen either. So
That's
it's like
right.
Instead we've got this we've created another layer of insulation for this sort of, I'll call it not even malfeasance but nonfeasance. People just don't give a crap.
Yeah, they don't.
It's federal money. What do I care?
Yeah. Speaking, this, if you guys don't mind, I'll bring. Speaking of Dave Yost, he is recently pushing for reinstatement or for use. The death penalty never went away, but they're not using it, and he's pushing that because I guess recently a state carried out a death sentence using nitrogen, which is obviously not a drug. It's not something, go to a welding shop and buy nitrogen. And they basically put down the incarcerated person using nitrogen. And so Dave Yost has been pushing the state legislature to specifically authorize that as a means to get around Governor DeWine's moratorium.
Yeah, I read that article too, and I guess it's not just going out and getting the can of nitrogen. Apparently, there are 3 or 4 companies that do this, and or have the opportunity to supply the mechanism to do it,
specialize in it,
and they're saying we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to sell it to states, so they're going to stop it. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be tied to the stigma.
Yeah,
we'll call it that. I don't blame them. It's their business. It's their business.
Or let's just say, am I comfortable giving you something that I know you're going to use to kill another human being? I may or may not be.
Yeah.
I could say, well, look, it's a worthy cause. It's legal, whatever. I'll give it to you. But I certainly don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's a solution, but I don't know if it's a solution because of that situation. I don't know. The cost factor for keeping death row inmates is crazy. From what I read,
irrespective of how you feel about the death penalty, it's an interesting.
Yes.
It
is interesting.
This bigger picture, one of the things that I like about the law and the legal system is that, particularly the Western legal system, which was developed on this notion of common law, which we make the law day in and day out. My litigation against you, against Brett, we go to court. There's a decision. Maybe it pushes the boundaries of the previous one. So now we're making some law.
It's like sedimentary rock. It's an accretion.
Yeah, and it just sort
layers
of moves. And does law follow social issues, or do social issues follow law?
And it's both, of course.
It's like this weird interaction. Yeah. So this is a perfect example of that. Death penalty is falling out of favor, like it or not.
Yeah, it
Yost may not like that.
Yeah, so get a stat for you. Ohio has 336 people from 1981 to 2023. 336 were sentenced to death, and 56 have been carried out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've had this conversation before, whether, again,
with our guests.
Paul Scarcella.
But it's been
excellent.
Is it a deterrent? It was set up as one, but is it one now?
Well, it certainly deters that particular criminal.
Well, look, there is.
I don't know.
There's
my biggest problem is that person really guilty? Because they have found guys who have been sentenced to death
and
with their DNA proving it's not them.
How do you define really guilty? And people say, yeah, but I'm only talking about the really, really guilty ones. I was like, yeah, the problem is that's a hard line to draw.
Just because you put really, really in front of it.
Right.
Really, really guilty. It's like
shit.
We had 10 eyewitnesses and DNA, and then we had a confession. All right, well, that guy's guilty. But is that the new standard? 10 eyewitnesses, DNA, and a confession?
Right.
Is that the death penalty? But it's not the standard.
We've had guys in prison for 30 years come out of prison.
Yeah, you bet.
Right? And my God, think of that.
Yeah.
30 years in the can.
How does that happen?
For an innocent person.
I can give all sorts of reasons why it happens. We don't need to go into it, but it does happen.
Yeah. Well,
And-
Paul walked us through that.
And so only the really, really guilty we should kill. And now the problem is we've got to figure out how do we define really, really guilty, and then that's a moving target as well.
And to Brett's point, the average death inmate incarceration before a date is even set is 21 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even get a date.
I think they said
for over 2 decades.
They'll probably die by suicide
or just old age.
Or old age before it even happens. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. No.
If I can carry on, this is a little disturbing. So we've talked about abortion a million times. This is a little different. This is euthanasia. So, and I don't mean young people in like China. I mean euthanasia.
There you go.
So 220-something women, both of whom suffer from autism, have submitted themselves to be euthanized by the state, one in the Netherlands and one in Canada.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Dude, I cannot.
I gotta tell you,
I can't get that.
Look, I
can't get that.
The problem with this is it's very similar to the death penalty problem. The standard that you're going to permit it. So what if if you would have asked me at different times in my life how I feel about myself and what's going on. I mean, I've suffered from my own bouts with depression and
Yeah.
And, if you're permitted to make a decision like that at a certain young stage in your life, you're going to make that decision, and then you never get a chance to recover from it. And it's
because you're dead.
One of the most simple yet poignant things I learned about death is that it's very permanent.
Yes.
Yeah. I caught this blip of a scene from Yellowstone. And
the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show. And the dad, what's his name? Can't think of it anyway. He's talking to his son.
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner's talking to the attorney's son, who I think must have been season 1 or something like that. Was going to take his life.
Because they're not talking anymore.
Right, exactly. So, he's going to take his life.
Yeah.
Sitting out in the, beautiful field, that sort of thing. And he talks him out of it, but he makes a comment saying, this act defines you. After you're doing it. Anything else before this, they've forgotten.
That's
all
true.
they will remember you as is that you took your life.
Yeah.
That's all they'll remember you as. Wow. And I thought that's really poignant.
Yes.
I can't say that word this morning either. But if you think about it, you're right. If somebody takes their life, that's what they're defined by. That's all you remember them by. That's it. Anything before that, what you've done good, it's done.
Yeah. People
or there's an asterisk that you never overcome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did this.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought that was really insightful, just a well-written moment.
Yeah.
Thinking, if that can, but that's tough.
I mean, autism. I mean, I don't suffer from autism. I'm not even really sure what it is. It seems it seems like it's something that has really come on in the last few decades and has been diagnosed, and I don't understand it.
It's a tough life.
Yeah.
It's a tough life.
Yeah. So look, it's not that this is a complicated argument, except to say this. If you let one person do it, then it'll become a contagion, and other people will do it.
Right.
And it's like, I can just kill myself and end it. And it's almost like acting like it's okay. It's okay to say, I just want to die. And I don't think it is okay to say that.
Right.
We've all probably said it to ourselves at some point or another.
Not for that. Now, if you're dying of cancer and you've gone through radiation and chemo and all that, and it's just going to be another 5 months of pain and torture, I could see an elderly person with cancer, maybe a medium-aged person with cancer, saying, turn off the machine. Let me
Those are different scenarios. We're talking about somebody who's wholly healthy and able to live physically, and these people make a decision. So at what age is this okay?
Yeah.
Like, how old do you have to be to make the decision?
Conditions?
Is my 16-year-old able to make that decision?
Yeah.
Because I know lots of teenagers who have gone through all sorts of depression that would have said, I'm just going to kill myself if the parents said, that's okay. Let's just end your misery.
Yeah.
That'll be okay. And then they would do it.
They would do it.
It's sort of like cutting your genitals off.
Yeah. Right.
They'll do it.
Yeah. Because it's a tough road, but it's just a journey we have to go through.
Ask anyone who has been through depression and sort of come out the other side, and they're almost always going to say they're better for it.
Well, where's the Hippocratic oath here? First, do no harm.
Yeah.
Well, see, but they're redefining standards, Norm. This isn't just, they are saying that they believe they're doing no harm by letting somebody kill themselves.
Wow.
Because the morality that we rest upon, that life is sacred, that we're all sort of created in the image of God, that we all have this opportunity to live. If you don't believe those things, well, then just kill yourself. In fact, a lot of these people now think there's just too many humans anyway, so why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Wow, man.
Wow.
It's scary stuff.
Yeah,
It is totally scary.
And I know, as we get closer to the end, obviously we want to talk about the eclipse coming up. You said something about that.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I didn't realize this, that the 1806 solar eclipse, which
I remember that.
the last total eclipse Ohio had it's nicknamed, I didn't know this, was nicknamed the Tecumseh eclipse.
Oh, really interesting.
So in 1806, I'll just very highlight what's going on. You know, indigenous peoples such as Delawares, Iroquois, Miami, Senecas, Shawnees, Wyandots were all over the place. You know,
The War of 1812 hadn't happened
right.
yet.
So the 1806 solar eclipse held particular significance for the Shawnee brothers Tecumseh, and I'm really going to butcher his brother's name, Tenskwata. Sorry.
Good enough.
Tecumseh aimed to form a Native American confederation to resist land loss, while his brother was known as the Prophet and wasn't really buying it. Tecumseh was not at the Treaty of Greenville in 1795 due to the lack of confidence in that whole field to it.
And that's Greenville, Ohio.
Correct, yeah. So Governor William Henry Harrison perceived the brothers' efforts as a threat. So in response to a challenge from Harrison, the Prophet predicted the eclipse. But it's speculated that Tecumseh learned of the eclipse from settlers or travelers. So he said, this is going to happen, and it's going to happen, and therefore we should...
So he used it to gain credibility.
And bring the tribes together.
Which shamans often did stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. So that's why they call it that, is because...
They had scientific knowledge that
because I guess at that time in the 1800s, there were, like we have right now, eclipse followers. They knew how this stuff was happening, and they're going all over the country to see eclipses.
It goes back to the Mayans, the Celts.
So it was predicted.
This is
time.
ancient stuff. The ancient Egyptians.
So
they were
really
well aware of this stuff.
Real interesting.
I just got to say one thing about the eclipse. I don't know where you guys are going to be. I'm going to Painesville, Ohio.
Oh, you're traveling. Wow.
Friend of mine up there in the Cleveland suburbs invited me up. So
now, how are you doing this then? You're going to go up the day before and stay the day after?
No, I'm going to go up Super Monday morning because it doesn't happen until like 3 in the afternoon.
Okay, and you're planning on coming back when?
Well, I'm heading over to Michigan.
Okay, good.
I'm doing a bunch of errands.
Good. All right, there you go.
But
because traffic's going to be crazy.
But you guys, I just want to say this: you guys out there, like Norm here, that have welding equipment in your garage, and I've seen this in previous eclipse. Unless you have a number 14 or number 12 lens, which almost no welding kits come with because that's super dark, that allows almost no light through, and only really weird kinds of welding would demand that kind of a lens. Unless you have a number 12 or number 14, don't use your welding helmet or goggles.
Yeah, are they selling glasses? I mean, the stores are selling the appropriate glasses. I presume we can trust those.
Here's
I'm assuming so. Yeah,
I don't know if this. Hopefully, we can get this on before Monday at 3. But the ISO number, so the International Standards Organization number, is 12312-2. That is the standard 12312-2. That if you go to Tractor Supply or Kroger or wherever the hell you buy your little goggles or your lenses, make sure it has that ISO 12312-2 on it, or else it's not safe. I mean, that's a bottom line.
So the prediction for Monday, just so you know, folks, it's partly cloudy.
Yeah,
mostly cloudy.
I think the last one.
So really,
and they're canceling reservations. I've heard.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I'm going up for the beer and hot dog.
But I think we had talked about going back to the farm, which was the farm we own is West Central Ohio, right at the Indiana line.
Oh, perfect.
And it would have been the 4-minute darkness there.
Yeah.
But then I just realized I saw the map and going, well, it cuts Columbus in half, and we can experience it for about a minute.
That's good enough.
I'm cool.
Yeah,
I'm cool with the minute, especially if it's going to be cloudy. I'm fine.
Catch the next one in 200 years.
That's what I'm planning on. That's what I'm planning on. So I'm eating a lot healthier right now.
Dose of common sense. All right, well, you got a word for the day?
I don't. I forgot. The word is be safe. How about
All right,
that?
the word be safe. All right, perfect.
It's eclipse. Eclipse. The word is
I have a
eclipse.
phrase, and it's kind of a news
I forgot
thing.
to look one up.
So have you guys heard of Havana syndrome? That's where our diplomats have been claiming, like in their embassies, that the Cubans and the Russians have bombarded them, and they've got these weird illnesses.
Yeah.
So Havana syndrome, that's our phrase. The Pentagon came out this week and said it's real, because a lot of people doubted, like, oh, come on, you're not really getting radiated by the Russians. Turns out the Pentagon says it's a real thing.
That's been going on a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's been like the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about that maybe 3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
and it's like, that sounds pretty legit.
I know.
Because they've kind of proven it
Yeah.
at that point in
So
time.
they're aiming antenna array at our
That's
embassies.
what it was. Yeah, that's what it was.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's insane. All right.
Jeez.
Well, look, I think that's it. Have we covered it?
I just got one other thing,
All right,
Steve.
Norman's got one more.
Because you're a football guy.
I was.
What is this deal with the NFL banning the pull-down tackles? Like, they have now banned where you wrap your arms around a guy's waist. And you know how hard it is to tackle somebody.
Yeah.
It's chaos. If you can get any piece of that guy and bring him down, that's a tackle in the old days. They're saying now that too many knee injuries are happening by guys hitting low and pulling you down by the waist, and they're banning that. How in the hell can they ban that kind of a tackle?
I don't know. That I have not heard that. That's news to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're not, I mean, think let's come back on a new.
No, we can think about it right now. It's like, there was a time like the traditional form tackle was sort of standardized before there were face masks.
That's right.
So you had form tackles that protected the tackler, and as a result, it was a little bit safer for the runner, I guess. And this pull down from the waist. I mean, you could sort of see that as I'm not.
It's almost a form tackle.
Yeah, it's almost a form tackle
because you're hitting center mass. You're wrapping the guy.
Now, leading with your head down. People argue with me all the time. It's like, getting rid of that. Like, because back in the 90s. Early 2000s, when those big hitters would come along, they lead with their head. They didn't even wrap. They were just like torpedoes.
Yeah, spearing.
I mean, I can see why that's not good.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Now, you can argue about some of these calls that are
where it's inadvertent.
Yeah, but it's like, but this is a weird one, man.
This is weird. I think this is
football. I think it's one of those sports that, if created today, it would be outlawed.
Or it would be flag football.
Or it'd be outlawed the way it is.
I mean,
and
that's what it's.
I also think that about driving. If cars were invented today, we wouldn't be allowed to drive.
Yeah,
probably.
It's just these people's notions of what's safe and what's not. I mean, look, football is a violent, dangerous, unsafe, injury-prone sport. It just is.
Yeah, right.
It's the Roman Coliseum.
It just is. I played the game and I got hurt. It's inherently dangerous.
There's another rule too. Not to go into the deep rabbit hole of NFL, but the rules for kickoffs are going to change too.
That too.
The kicking team will kick off from its own 35-yard line. 10 members of the kicking team will line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line, 25 yards in front of their kicker.
Yeah, so what happens?
Is this arena football stuff? Is that what's bleeding from?
No.
These guys are kicking way too deep now.
What's happening is if I'm kicking from my own 35, I read this, but I didn't dissect it. I'm going to do this live.
Okay,
folks,
right,
live in person. If I'm kicking from my own 35, but my kicking team, the coverage team, is on the other side's 40. That's about what, 40 or how many yards ahead of me?
15 yards, I guess, or 25 yards.
25 yards.
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
All right. So what that prevents is the kickoff team from doing what I used to love to do: get ahead of steam and just blast the crap out of whoever has got the ball. I was the attack guy.
They would murder people.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the fair catch, kind of that fair catch rule feel too.
Well, it prevents people.
If he didn't, then you murder him.
Right,
so what I used to do, we used to line up, and my job, like everybody's been on kickoff teams, knows the old adage: stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. So all the lanes are covered, and don't overcommit, because then you get somebody reverses their field and comes back around you. My job was not to stay in my lane. We had a kickoff that was designed to go to the corner, and my job was to attack the football wherever it is. I was just that guy. I would line up right next to the football. Alan Poho-Rillis was our kicker. He was the soccer kicker, and I had a blast. It was joyous.
Sure. You were the assassin.
It was joyous.
Yeah, that's fun.
A full head of steam.
Yeah.
And I got tackles. I mean, at one point, I had
blow
most
the guy
tackles
up.
in a game because we kicked off and I got a tackle every time.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
And you blow him up, man.
And I got
you
hurt.
blow the guy. Yeah.
And I got hurt. I hurt my shoulder. I hurt my neck, and it's still to this day.
Wow.
to this day, because I got what everybody knows is a stinger, and it never went away.
Yeah.
So it's like I got hurt. Look, and I wouldn't have if I didn't do that.
So it's actually protecting the offensive line as well, too.
It's protecting everybody. It's protecting It's protecting everybody. Now you could say, look, that's the argument in favor. The argument against of it is, come on, guys, it's football.
Yeah.
Right.
It's football. You're not doing it unless you know.
Diffusing it again.
The NFL's got this big push to bring women into football, and the way to do it would be to have flag football, because then you'd have no contact.
The way to do it is just to let one woman play as the rules are now.
Well, okay. I mean, that's I agree with
then
that.
Then it'll never happen again.
But I'm talking
right.
about
well,
then it would never happen again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, look, it's not even a criticism of women.
Of course not.
No,
I couldn't go play the NFL.
Right.
I was not equipped to play in the NFL.
No.
I'm a grown ass man who played football at a small college.
It's like
There's
these
no
crazy.
chance in hell I would have had it.
They're talking about that girl from young woman from Iowa, Caitlin, whatever her name is, and they're saying, "Oh, she should just go right into the NBA."
Yeah, no, she shouldn't.
Oh, come on, guys.
No.
This is like
What the hell?
McEnroe. Like, don't listen to McEnroe's interviews about the greatest tennis players of all time.
Yeah.
And why didn't you pick a woman? He's like, because you want the greatest woman of all time. I'll give you that. But you can't. They're two different classes of analysis,
and both are fantastic in their field.
Right.
of course.
They're fantastic.
And by the
playing
way,
the game.
Serena, I think, has been interviewed. Says I couldn't beat the best.
Right. I think I saw that too.
The women's Final Four is in Cleveland, and the tickets are $1,000.
Wow.
The male Final Four tickets are $750.
Sometimes
People
Love
want
it.
they
Love
want to
it.
see that girl from.
And that's
I
fan-
keep saying girl.
Young
lady from
that's
Iowa.
fantastic. That's great. I love it.
It really
love
is.
it.
It's kind of
Great.
cool.
That's
kind of
great.
cool.
Yeah,
And it's here in Ohio. It's
And
cool.
look, there's a school of thought. I like. I used to go watch the Capital University when I was a kid. My dad taught at Capital University, and what we did every Tuesday, I think it was on Tuesdays and Saturdays, every Fridays they would play.
Nice.
And we would go watch to the point where I got to learn the team and I knew the players and I did whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like basketball. It was like I don't want to call it. What's the movie? Hoosiers. It was,
Hoosiers?
like
It was real basketball.
they passed
then.
the ball.
Yeah.
They had to play.
They
it
had to
wasn't just
dribble.
fast paced. Everybody slam dunks, and they would set up plays. And I learned their offense.
Right.
And then Worcester. I remember them playing Worcester, and Worcester used to stall before
Yeah.
the shot clock. And it was basketball. And sometimes women's basketball is a little bit like that. Like it's like they have to move the ball around. It's not just a run and gun slam dunk. It's fun to watch the run and gun slam dunk, but it's also this other like watching women play.
It's
and set up
traditional
plays
basketball.
and watch the ball move around in a way that
They don't travel
strategically.
I mean,
So-
the NBA, those guys are taking 3-4 steps. They're not dribbling. I mean, it's
Man,
crazy.
It's a different game.
It's a totally different game. So anyway, all right. Well, with that, we're really going to wrap it up.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm
Good.
glad we
It's
talked
great.
about it.
Yeah.
So commonsenseohioshow.com, where you can go check us out on our website, and you can do lots of things there. You can subscribe, you can like, you can push it out to all your friends. Share it. Just everybody knows how to copy a link now and send it by text. Just go ahead and do that. Or if you want to go to the podcast, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, wherever you get your podcast and subscribe, you can do that. We can help you do it at the website too. You can check us out on YouTube. Why? Because we are on video. That's right, video, folks. You can see us. You can look at clips on Facebook too. So lots of fun stuff going on. If you think you got the chops to hang with Norm here at the round table,
You don't.
trust me, it's hard. Every week. But
Good
you
God.
want to be a guest, you got something to offer, or you want a topic to cover, just shoot us an email at commonsenseohioshow.com. We're happy to do it. You can also become a sponsor like Harper Plus. We can move him aside, nudge him over there and find some
right.
sponsorship opportunities. So
$1 million. Come on.
and if you're TurboTax and you want to sponsor us, then I'll be your guy. I'll love that program if you give us $1 million. I promise.
Big time.
So with that, we are coming at you right from the middle each and every week, at least until